just like we were testing edge cases like editing the web page and then submitting things to try to change the echo wake word to other things, we were trying to use the ASK responder to basically fake access to other cards. Like we've got the idea that you guys have a weather card and you have a sports card.
Yeah.
Because like when you ask it for the weather, it returns back this fancy card with all these graphics and extra options and whatnot. So we were trying to figure out, just guess and check what that format was so we could hijack it and use it in one of our skills before you guys had released it to the public.
Turns out you guys are guarding against that on the server side.
Or we just haven't gotten the format correctly.
Yeah, or we haven't
think.
Right.
So
yeah, but I love it. I love the mindset that you guys have been in the weeds and tinkering with this stuff because it makes us iterate better. And in fact, I've been sending people to the responder because, like you said, we don't have the ability to show images on the fly. And what happened was when we released the voice simulator, you could start tinkering around with SSML. And so suddenly now I can get Alexa to say things without having a lick of server-side code. But what does that actually look like? How does that display? And we're in such early days, right? It's still day one. I know you guys have been using this for so long, and I've been using it day in and day out. But I forget, this thing's a developer preview still. This is, the functionality. We're going to be iterating on this quick, but it's still very basic functionality, and the testing tools are basic functionality. So I've been blown away with what people have created today. But once you get past having tools and having the basic functionality, the next step is that customer experience, like actually designing skills that people want to use every single day. And in order to do that, you've really got to tweak, what are these cards, what do they look like when they return, what does Alexa sound like when she returns, is she enunciating things correctly? And that's what I loved about your tool, is it allowed somebody who maybe necessarily didn't know how to code the back end, maybe I have designer friends, I pull them in and say, hey, can you just tweak the way this card looks? A lot of designers do know what JSON is, at least. It's easy to kind of just edit those. They can update an image and see what that looks like. And you guys have enabled that through the community tool. So I thank you for being able to contribute to that and help. That's what I love about the community is somebody releases a tool like that. It helps everybody else out and helps up the game of the entire skill experience.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the tweaking and the designer sense and all that, because we found that we are extremely picky with that stuff. Like, we'll spend hours and hours just tweaking our output to the extent that we're seeing it hurting our velocity. We only have at this point 3 skills released, a couple more that are very close. But other people in the community, like individual people, Joe Giaquinta being one of them, have released way more than we have in the same amount of time, just because we can't let it go. If something doesn't sound quite right, or if the formatting on the card was a good one, we spent for Complibot and Insultabot a ton of time making sure we could get the right spacing for the card that we wanted. And part of that was just because we wanted to insert ASCII art into some of our responses.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's the little things that really slow us down, where we see the community going a lot faster. I mean, you guys have the 1 hour skill templates and all that stuff, and that just for us just isn't something we can let ourselves do.
Yeah, it's, you're blazing a trail, right? And I'm the same way when it comes to like string manipulations, like my regex and everything. I have all these functions because just even having some white space in there, it irks me out. And it is important. I mean, you do, at the end of the day, when you get visual feedback, if somebody sees that in the Alexa app, it's going to be next to everything else. It's next to like music albums when they're playing Prime Music. It's next to the weather coming across. And so you want to have the best experience, because what's actually displayed there, that's your brand, right? What Alexa is saying and then what it's displaying. Saying and displaying, yeah, we rhymed. But it's true. And I think as we start to iterate on this, That's one of the things I get asked for a lot is what are the best practices? Are there any guidelines? And so you can build upon what you've already had. So the next time you have to do something with Aussie art or something with text, you start to have libraries around that makes things happen. I want to end this with two questions for you guys, and they're both similar because I think they go hand in hand. The first is, where do you see this going forward? And for us, we knew when we were creating Alexa that all of you in the community were going to be able to teach her things that we never even thought possible. In essence, we've crowdsourced making her smarter through this skills kit. So my first question is, where do you see this going? And then the follow-up to that would be, how can we make that possible? What have we done so far to help improve where your vision is to help you get there? And what would you love for us to add in the skills kit moving forward?
Oh, that's okay. So that was a
dangerous question.
Yeah.
I kind of know what are the top ones. I know what you guys are going to say for a lot of that, but I love kind of your opinion on vision of this stuff too. What needs to happen?
Yeah. So as far as where things are going, I imagine eventually it's going to be Skynet. I think the smart home piece is one that people have latched onto right now in terms of, what can we do with voice that we couldn't reasonably do otherwise. But I think there's a lot of other things, just the gathering of information, things that as people get lazier and lazier, being able to say, like, what is, looking up something on Wikipedia or something just with voice without even having to pull out your phone. There's all of that, as well as all the home automation stuff. I really see just a deeper integration into everyday life. I'm especially interested to see what happens with the Alexa voice service, where that starts getting integrated. I think I heard something about it getting added to Pebble the other day, which is huge because that allows you to have Alexa everywhere as long as you're wearing a watch, which is a pretty low barrier of entry.
Which also gives you more form factors to run your skills on.
Right. As far as what we'd like to see, I mean, from a technical sense, there are a lot of things that that I think the community would like to see. Everyone requests push notifications, et cetera, et cetera. But for us, the big issue that we've had a hard time with is the question of testability. Obviously, to solve part of that problem, we built the ASK responder, but there's still the testing of the front end piece, and David has actually started working on some stuff on how you test the voice model.
Yeah, so right now some of our dev concerns would be about limitations of the interaction model and then automated testing, because you guys are constantly updating and tweaking the voice system and how that basically affects how it interacts with our skills. So for those of us who are not developers, when you're defining a skill, you have to define a series of sample sentences that are basically mapping to endpoints in the skill. So when you say, I want to order a pizza, it maps to that endpoint, I want to order a pizza. But if the voice model is changing ever so slightly and you've got some accent that the Echo doesn't consider normal, then all of a sudden this skill may break for you and nothing has changed in the code. And we wanted the ability to basically do automated functional testing of this, have a bunch of audio files, people's different voices, and test things and see how well our skill is actually performing on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, right now all that testing is, if you're doing that testing, you have to do it manually through an Echo or through Echo Sim or one of the other AVS-enabled sites, and that's a huge barrier to doing any sort of continuous testing, or even when you're preparing a skill for certification, just being able to have a large number of utterances that you want to test out.